Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the XR Update podcast. It's been a minute. We've missed you guys. I'm imagining you've probably missed us dearly. It has been a while, so long, in fact, that amazing intro that was designed by our very own Todd Jackson is like slightly outdated at this point with the squad that you see on there. I don't know if that's what you were thinking about, Damien, but that was definitely going through my mind when I was seeing that.
Or it might be a little outdated. There's not a beautiful face like this on there or anything like that, but it is quite a badass intro as well too. I couldn't help but think that during it. So maybe a little outdated, but still epic nonetheless.
Well, couldn't have said it any better, but thanks for joining us, everyone. My name is Alex Milland. I go by Alex VR. I am the perpetual host of this show when we manage to go live with it. And joining me as my co-host for this episode is the incredible from the Rough Talk VR podcast, Damien Ruffy D. Scruffy. What's up, dude? Good to see you.
What's up, everyone? Good to be here. It's been a while. I know you said it's been a while since we've done one of these in general, but it's been even longer since I've been on with you here. So, we work together. Always great to have a chat, but even better when we get to do it with mics.
Amen.
So,
and we've been busy over here. I think you'd have to be living under a rock to have missed the Impact Inked announcement. We launched a publishing wing over here to Impact Reality to publish built from the ground up VR games, which is a really exciting development for our company, and gives us more ways to help developers and help them come to market and be successful and market their games properly and do all of that. So if you're out there developing a VR game, looking for a publisher, and what you're doing is good and it's fun and it's somewhat polished, hit me up and we can explore the publisher route together. So that's really, really exciting. And of course, Flat2VR Studios has just had their foot on the gas for every single month of 2025, just absolutely cranking on new projects and releases and things like that, which is actually exciting because that's why we're doing an episode, believe it or not. It's because Flat2VR has a release coming out that we want to talk about. But before we do that, Damien, I was thinking if it's okay with you that we just check in with the VR industry real quick and maybe touch on a news point before we introduce today's guests and get into the meat and potatoes of this thing.
Let's get into it. That's a hell of a warm up, if you ask me. There's no shortage of good VR news to go over. So I think the struggle is, only talking one or two pieces, not going over, a whole hour.
We're going to keep it really chill, really simple, and really fun today, actually, because this is the thing that kind of stood out to me as like something that's like a bit of a talking point. Stan LaRoque, who is the CEO of Lynx, who made the Lynx R1 standalone mixed reality headset that was unfortunately a little late to come to market by the time it started to show up and ship to Kickstarter backers. But this is a dude who knows his stuff about headsets and is incredibly passionate about our industry, who apparently got his hands on the Deckard. That's what this tweet says. It says the design of the Valve Next head-mounted display is quite amazing.
So we have two options here. Either Stan can't keep a secret, or, he put this out in collaboration with Valve as like the first official marketing of the Deckard.
And the marketing,
if you notice,
it's amazing.
And he doesn't call it the Deckard anywhere in the tweet as well, too.
No, he doesn't.
So,
he doesn't. Yeah, that's the code name.
I doubt Stan can't keep a secret. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, as you can see in this follow-up tweet, he says, I would be equally pissed if Link's next-gen ID got leaked. So I won't be sharing more. I'm just excited for good new XR HMDs. The HMD making world is so small. We all share the same suppliers for some components. And that's actually pretty true. It's like, you want to build a headset, well, you're going to be building it out of the same stuff that everybody else is building them out of.
No, I think this is exciting. I can only imagine, sadly, it's Bradley at home, like foaming at the mouth, reading that tweet, going,
yeah. So for me, I guess this is like a signal that like they're out there, like Stan can't be the only one who has a Valve headset right now. So there's developers out there who are building for these things, and hopefully that means that we'll be hearing something from Valve soon. I haven't checked Brad's Twitter in a minute, so I don't know like what the latest is in terms of like what's been leaking from Valve. But hopefully that means we'll see something this year.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Is there any more loved company in gaming than Valve? So,
I don't think so.
I mean, people still love their Index. Valve puts out another headset. It's gonna make a big wave, no doubt.
I hope so. Like for me, like playing Half-Life Alyx on an Index is like akin to playing Super Mario 64 on a Nintendo 64. It's like the software designed for the hardware. You know what I mean? So I would love for like another, I don't know, have we had our Nintendo 64 moment in VR? Was it the Quest 2? I don't know. If we have, I want another one because Valve could really revitalize our industry and bring a lot of attention to us.
I'm excited for this one. And again, I'm skeptical that Stan would just go out there and drop some tweet like that he shouldn't. I have a feeling this might be the first unofficial official marketing beat from Valve on their next headset.
Well, it'd be interesting if they worked with that's technically a competitor to do that, but I like where your head's at. It's fun. Cool. Well, anyway, that's just all I really wanted to talk about. I didn't want to spend too much time on news and things because I wanted to really dive into our conversation about our launch this week. If you're watching this, you can see that we are talking about Out of Sight VR. And we have some of the folks who are responsible for bringing us Out of Sight VR to join us here on the show today. But before we do bring them on and introduce them, why don't we take a quick look at this?
I hope she doesn't find us here. You can be our eyes, and I'll get us out.
There is the trailer for Out of Sight VR launching this Thursday in a mere 2 days. And joining us from Flat2VR Studios is Emily O'Neill. Hey, Emily, how you doing?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you for joining as always. And from the gang, we have Hallros. What's up, Potter?
Hello, guys. Happy to be here.
Thank you for joining and thank you for enduring. I'm sure you hear people trying to roll their R's to pronounce your name regularly when you're talking with folks on our side of the world. Where are you joining us from, Par?
I'm from Stockholm right now. It's not where I come from, but that's where I'm right now. I'm Swedish, though. So yeah, hearing people mispronounce my name is daily occurrence almost. But I'm fine. I'm used to it. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining us, and shout out Stockholm. I absolutely love that place. It's so gorgeous, and had a blast. I was in Stockholm solo on a solo trip in between places, and had an absolute grand time all by myself, hitting up museums and restaurants and stuff. It's a great place to hang out.
Yeah, I love it here as well. I'm from a smaller town in the beginning. But now, ever since I've lived here for like 3.5, 4 years now, and I absolutely love it. It's my second home now.
Nice, I love it. Well, thank you for being here with us. Yeah, this is an exciting time. This is a big time, a big launch coming up here for Flat2VR Studios and for the gang. And I think maybe a good place to start would be to talk about how this happened, right? Like, I'm sure people are a little bit curious as to like how a Flat2VR Studios title comes to be and what it looks like to kind of enter a partnership like this. So, Potter, can you kind of just shed some light on kind of how this collaboration began?
So I'll take it back to the very beginning, almost when we got to make the game for real. At the very first company presentation we had, they were people from the company in the audience who were immediately asking questions about, is this coming to VR? right? At the very first presentation, it was like, we really hope it does, right? Because it would go so well in VR, the game. And then we didn't have the capacity to develop it ourselves. We did the PC version, yeah, when we were close to finishing, we got partnered with Starbreeze, who is publishing the game for PC and consoles. And yeah, through their channels, we got in contact with Flat2VR.
Nice.
We're very excited to help us out with the VR version that we have been longing for.
I mean, if you take when you look at this, so I guess it would probably behoove us to explain that in this game, you are seeing the world through the eyes of a teddy bear, and you control your companion, the girl in the video, like with your controls, but you're looking through the eyes of Teddy, and that is so VR, right? Like any like third person experience in VR, like when you think about Moss, for example, you know, it's like classic built from the ground up VR experience. You're controlling a character in third person, but you are also a thing, you know, like I feel like every third person experience in VR, most of the developers want to embody the player in the experience as well, to, you know, most of the time to like explain why you're there, even like why and how are you explaining, or are you controlling this character, you know, like what is your role as the player in the world. And that's one of the things that's almost uniquely VR. So when I see it you know, coming from a flat screen game, it really doesn't surprise me that everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is completely, you know, made for VR. Yeah, have you had any thoughts like that, Emily?
Well, yes, definitely. I think that the comparison to Moss and then also Trover Saves the Universe comes to mind, where you are this other character. But what is really cool, I think, about Out of Sight is it brings that horror element to it, and the very intimate connection that you have between Sophie and Teddy that I think is unique to this game, and is really powerful in the original version already. And so then being able to embody Teddy and be in the world and feel the scale of the world just like pushes it to another dimension of immersion in this already incredibly immersive story and worlds that the game created.
Yeah, what are some things that you guys have had to do from a design standpoint to VRify a game that was clearly like already a perfect fit for virtual reality?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing we wanted to get right was the scale. As soon as we were able to get our hands on the game, that was one of the first things that we were exploring, because that was really important, that the two characters that you're playing are very small in this world. And when you're immersed in the world, you can get a sense of that scale in a much more like visceral, tangible way. And you specifically are a teddy bear. So you're not even like a person who can function in this world. And we wanted to get that scale right so that you feel that vulnerability just like immediately the second you open your eyes as Teddy. So that was something. And then something that we're still exploring, because we are releasing in early access. Oh, I also wanted to mention we are releasing in early access just Steam VR. Other platforms coming later.
Got it. So it's just Steam today, but Meta and PSVR down the line. How far down the line?
Yes.
Do we know?
I think we're shooting for Q4 of this year.
Got it.
Yes. And yes, so we're still looking to explore more of what we can do to VRify the interactions. Yeah, that makes sense as a word, VRifying. But
sure.
the biggest thing I think is, and this is a conversation that I've had with Peter actually recently, is what does embodying Teddy mean, and how does that sort of build on the backstory and the lore of this world and why you can see through Teddy in the first place. And I'll probably leave it to Peter to not reveal anything about the story, because I don't want any spoilers, but there is this sort of underlying mystery of like, what is actually happening here? Like, why can you see through Teddy? Why can you control Sophie? And that's something that develops throughout playing the game. And so that's obviously something that comes up in VR. Like, you are the bear, right? So what can you do? What can you control? What is alive? What isn't alive? You know, these kinds of questions that are kind of the fundamental basis of the narrative, and something that we want to build on and expand on in VR, but in a way that's still true to the original story. So that's something that we're going to keep working on post early access, is to kind of build on that existing narrative that the game created, and hopefully bring some new elements and dynamics to it that doesn't change it, but builds on it and maybe gives the players a unique perspective and understanding of what is happening between Teddy and Sophie.
Yeah, I can imagine there's quite a bit of novelty when you're embodying a teddy bear. Like you have little teddy bear arms that you're wiggling around, and you're looking down, and you see a little teddy bear body. Like
Yeah,
Otter, have you
it's
guys
really small.
seen have you guys pop into the headset during development? Do you see this? Like, what was your experience putting into the headset and seeing this world in VR?
I think you're immediately struck by being this really small character. Also, Alex, I lost your audio a little bit there. I don't know if that happened for anyone else or if that was just me.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, now it's
Yes.
yeah.
You're back.
Cool. But yeah, I'm actually curious of what the gang's reactions were to this. Like when you guys put the headsets on and you saw your world that you guys have been working on brought to life in virtual reality for the first time. What was that experience like?
It's really cool actually to see your baby, right, coming alive in all these different platforms, and that's something we really was very precious about maintaining, like as from a design standpoint of our own, like this connection between Sophie and the teddy bear. And of course, you being the teddy bear just adds upon that, right? Of course, when you're playing the PC version, you do the controls, you are the teddy bear, you are the one looking around, but you have so much more freedom, so much more immersion when you're in there yourself, right? Which is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So it just builds on whatever we made in the beginning, and this connection, that's the biggest thing that we've tried to establish with these characters.
Mm-hmm. Damien, how do you do with horror and scary stuff in VR?
Oh, horror is usually a struggle with me. As long as it, like jump scares and dying via like something jumping out with me is a big struggle for me in VR, especially when I'm home alone and it's like 11 p.m. Things that are just more atmospheric that I know my character won't die, like Ghost Town, I can do a little bit better with. Something I did want to ask, we've gone over it briefly, and I understand it's tough because of spoilers and stuff like that, especially for a game like that the story of what's going on is so much of the experience. So without giving spoilers or ruining that first time playthrough experience, do you want to give a brief, run through of what the plot line is? We don't need to go into what develops through the game, but just, for anyone who maybe all they've seen of this game is that trailer at the start, we see the teddy bear, you see Be Her Eyes, what's the story of Out of Sight and Out of Sight VR?
Right. So what when you start the game, it just starts one night with the teddy bear awakening, if you will, being able to see for Sophie, and she recognizes this as an opportunity for her to escape from whatever this place is that she doesn't want to be in. So that's the premise you get as you start the game. That and then you as you go, you kind of need to fill in the gaps of why. So Sophie is really adamant about escaping, but she doesn't tell you why in the beginning. So the longer you play, you realize there's something trying to keep you here, and you can see them on your screen. You're not the only one in this house, right? And you're there for a reason, albeit a very sinister reason. It really unfolds as you play, and you get to understand more about where you are and why you're there. But the goal never changes, right? Sophie wants to leave this place.
I'm kind of hoping that this is not the most terrifying thing in the world. Like when you see these scenes of like peeking through like the ceiling boards, or like peeking through the wall, and like the your I don't know what you would call your antagonists, if you will, right on the other side. Like, it takes me to when I played Resident Evil 7 in VR for the first time, and I mean, I guess this might be somewhat spoilers, but there's a scene where you're like under the house and there is like footsteps above your head. You can like hear this evil killing machine walking above you, and I remember just like, I can still feel that. It was like such a visceral experience, you know. But like, I'm not one that like this stuff is intense, you know. Like, horror in VR is really no joke. Like, it kicks up my fight or flight. And you know, this game almost seems to have like a little bit of like a, I don't know, like a stylized or cartoonish vibe to it. So like, maybe it's not like as purely terrifying as my Resident Evil 7 experience. Like, how scary is this thing, Emily?
I think that you're not wrong in that. For me, I probably am similar to Damien in my ability to play horror games. I also played, when I first played the original version of this game, I played it in the night in one sitting. So like through the night, I played this game alone in this office. And it was exactly that. It's this very atmospheric, like immersive, creepy, anxiety driving world. But it's I would put it more in the realm of like an atmospheric horror, as opposed to like I am jumping out of my seat and need to run away from the computer. And so for that, for me, I think is really cool, especially for VR, because it's a more accessible horror, I would say, in terms of what the horror genre brings us in gaming. And I love that about this title, because I think that not everybody wants the full horror experience, but they want that immersion that horror brings. And I think that Out of Sight and Out of Sight VR nails that that particular like sweet spot of that adrenaline pumping, but not so much that you want to go crawl under your bed.
Yeah, you don't need to nope out when you like are approaching the threshold of a door. Like, I would just like get to a door in Resident Evil and be like, I'm done. Like, you want me to go in there? Like, I can't go in there. You know?
Yes.
So Potter, is this like is this scarier in VR? Like, does it make the experience more visceral? Like, how does the experience compare when you put the headset on for you personally?
I think it definitely, like, because you're there, right? And you don't really feel safe. And like Emily's leaning into here, it is definitely leaning more towards the atmospheric style of horror. But for me, I played the game before, right? so I know what to expect. So maybe I'm not the best candidate to judge this. But it's definitely a more intense feeling, I would say, when you're actually there.
Mm-hmm. So tell us something that's important about this project, Emily, that we haven't really had a chance to get to yet. Like, has there been like a particularly surprising aspect of the development process that, you know, has shed a lot of light or was like seemingly catalytic, you know, or is there something really special about this project that you think that we should touch on while we're having a conversation about it?
That is super interesting. Of a question, because I feel like there's a variety of different things, but we've kind of touched honestly on what I would say is the most important thing, but I want to double down and come back to the second person perspective, because that has been such a unique thing to navigate in VR development specifically, because a lot of unique challenges come up with third person control in VR. Like, there's a reason people don't do it that often. It's not easy. You have 360-degree view in VR, right? Like, you can turn around, you are in the room. And that was a unique challenge for us to figure out, and something honestly we want to keep iterating on with the community and early access is refining that second person, third person control of Sophie and making that feel really good in VR. Because something that Pat and I have spoken about, like I've mentioned, is you really need to feel connected to Sophie and Teddy. And so that The fidelity of the control of Sophie is just as important as the fidelity of control of Teddy. And that has been, I would say, one of our biggest challenges in the VR development is handling, understanding, like, because if you think about it, and this might be getting a little bit too in the weeds, but if you think about like a flat game, you always know where forward is. It doesn't change. It's always forward relative to the camera. But in a 360 situation, you have to decide what forward is. Is forward relative to the player? Is forward relative to the where Teddy got sat down originally? Is forward relative to Sophie? And what feels good in controlling Sophie as she moves behind you? What do you expect Sophie to be doing when she's behind you in the world? And that has been a super interesting challenge to tackle, because I've never made a second-person VR game before. So that has been cool, and I think we're really looking to get some feedback from the community on how it's feeling and keep iterating and making it better.
Cool. So, and that's a benefit of releasing an early access, you know? So if you're out there and you pick this game up today and you have some thoughts about the controls or you have some thoughts about the cameras, do not hesitate to hit us up. You know, like join the Flat2VR Discord and get in there and start sharing your thoughts and sharing your feedback and sharing your ideas. That's one of the really cool things about Flat2VR and frankly, just like smaller studios in general, is that they are oftentimes like very like willing and eager to hear feedback and implement that feedback. You know, like I feel like if you send I don't know, like Riot Games some feedback about League of Legends. You say like, hey, this hero is too strong. They're gonna sweep that under the rug. You know what I mean? But projects like this, you really can make an impact on. You know, no pun intended. So join the Flat2VR Studios Discord after you have a chance to play it, and let Emily know what you think about these controls, because that is a super interesting thing, and that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. You know, so I'm glad you went there, because I'm wondering then, like, how often are you in a situation where she's behind Teddy? You know, like, is the game originally designed for like full 360 spaces and you're like spinning around a lot, or is it kind of like a rare occurrence and most of the time you're like kind of positioned? Because a lot of VR games that are third person, built from the ground up for VR, do have you in these fixed positions to kind of solve for what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll briefly answer that super quickly. We are in fixed positions right now, but that's something that we possibly want to explore not doing. But I want her to answer from the original design, like camera positioning, because that's super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's also been one of our biggest issues. Just what is second person perspective? What does it afford for the player? How can you play that? So we realized very quickly, or very early on, that it's very difficult to wrap your head around where you are, right? That's the biggest thing. Where am I at all times? So we decided as well to go with the design director that we want this to feel as natural and easy for the player to play as possible. So that does involve making sure Sophie stays on screen, or at least in your field of view, where you can possibly look. So you are able to look around and like make Sophie not be on the screen, but she's not going to disappear completely from you. You can always be counting on that she knows at least where you are, and will make sure that she is where you need her to be, right? You're still in full control of this, of course, but it is tricky to give the 360 full control. So for the base version, we do lock you in a little bit just to make sure that you don't lose yourself unintentionally.
Mm-hmm. And now that just actually real quick, is there any like big difference between the flat version and the VR version, other than the immersion and maybe some controls and some QOL? Like, is there any like scenes or features that are in the flat version that are not in the VR version or anything like that?
I'll leave that to you, Emily. I'm not 100% sure.
The progression and the story is the same in both versions. So it's just the controls and immersion that we bring into VR.
And the magical capture of scale, you know, like because we're seeing this trailer here, and like, you know, it's clear that you're a small bear, and you know she's a little girl, and like there's big like adult sized people that like look like monsters running around in here, and like that's all fine and dandy, and it looks kind of fun on this trailer, but scale in VR is like one of my favorite things about virtual reality. Like standing next to something that is just massive compared to you really like is a very like, I don't know, a very visceral feeling for me, you know. And that's one thing that I'm realizing that I am just now realizing is that when I play this game, I'm going to be small, like looking up in this like big room. And
You're going to be tiny.
yeah, that's going to be fun. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about VR.
And something else this game does that is always my favorite games in VR, I think, to like Red Matter, or I referenced earlier Ghost Town, is puzzles. I love puzzles in VR. There's something about that intuitive, you know, using your actual hands to solve, and just I love it. I can't get enough of it. So what can we expect for puzzles in this game? Is this something that, you know, that's how you advance the story? Is every time, you know, you go to a new room, there's a new set of puzzles to go through, advance a little new set of puzzles, or are puzzles more sprinkled in throughout?
I think I can start. I think from our side in the original game, puzzles are, how do you say, they are there because getting through the world for Sophie and Teddy is a challenge, because they are small, they are very vulnerable, and they are very reliant upon each other. So just seeing what you need to see and finding what you're able to interact with, that is a challenge in and of itself. And then figuring out, okay, where can I put down Teddy and where do I need to look in order to interact with what I need to interact? And how can I then reposition Teddy while I'm not holding him to be able to see in a new area where I couldn't before? So all the puzzles are very second person, or not all of them, but the majority are very second person based. So it's all coming from this idea that you need to be able to find places to look appropriately, so that you enable Sophie to perform the interactions she needs to get you both out of there.
Beautiful. That's great. So
Love that. And
go ahead, Damien.
I was going to say, will these puzzles have one method to solve, or do you get to, you know, I guess use multiple paths to victory to solve a puzzle? Most puzzle games I've played, there's one linear path of how you solve the puzzle, but occasionally I see some with, you know, different paths to the end result.
Our game is definitely a linear experience, I would say. It's a linear story with I mean, there are some of them you could get a bit tricky or finicky with, but it's very, very few of them. But you have several stuff you can try out, but there is one correct solution.
Why? And we're gonna be wrapping this up here shortly, everybody. But I am curious, like why this game? Like how? Like what's the inspiration? Like were you like just like coming up with a bunch of ideas and went with your favorite, or is this inspired by something else?
You know, it was like a vote 5-3 of doing like a generic tower defense game instead. So it was very close that this didn't happen. But this staff started out as a school project, actually, back when I was a student at Future Games here in Stockholm. And they gave us the very generous prompt of making your magnum opus, like your masterpiece, right? And you don't know how to go about that, right? But it was a randomized group of people, and we came up with this concept of this camera when we were looking into, like, okay, you know what first person perspective is, you know third person, what is second person? So that's how it started, and then we came up with this connection between these two characters, and we had never seen a game like that before, and that is exactly why we decided to go for that idea.
Nice. I love it. That's beautiful. So the game is releasing on Thursday in early access on Steam. We're aiming for Q4 for PlayStation VR and MetaQuest to get the VR version of Out of Sight. Dare I ask beyond that, like, or is that in the goal? Like, do we have like future plans? Like, are we going to entertain like DLC packs or like any additional content moving forward, or are we going to get this thing as like perfect and presented as possible and let it exist as a completed piece of art?
I mean, for the original game is coming out as a full release now on Thursday. It's the VR version who is going into the early access. But I don't want to promise anything. But we're definitely cooking up some stuff, hoping for the best, of course, with the launch of the game, seeing what kind of opportunities we can do going forwards. Because
Nice.
we love this idea, and there's so much more for us to explore with the second person perspective and Sophie and Teddy.
That's the answer I was looking for. Emily, anything else? Anything else that we should mention about this thing before we wrap this up?
Just thank you so much for supporting Flat2VR and Out of Sight VR and Wishlist on Steam before Thursday. And for those folks who do play it, there's a little surprise for you after the credits. So finish the game.
Boom. There's a surprise for you after the credits. Oh my God, that's the best thing I've ever heard in my life. So now you heard it here first, folks. You have to finish this game to see what's going on at the end post-credit scene. I absolutely love that. Emily from Flat2VR, Potter from the gang, thank you guys so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate you. And good luck on Thursday on the launch of everything. You know, we'll be playing. And we'll be following along. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll say goodbye to Potter and Emily. And it's me and Damien to wrap things up.
That was a good talk. That was fun. I'm excited for this one. And I mean, talk about the ultimate teaser at the end. How
I know, dude.
Good work from Emily getting me hyped at the very end there, going, just, beat the game and stick around for the credits. That's like telling me to stick around after the movie credits. It's like, I have to.
Yep. Well, this is super exciting stuff, man. We had Trombone Champ at the end of this year, and I know people have been waiting to see what comes next from Flat2VR. So it's here. You know what I mean? This is amazing. It's a fantastic, like, polished, good graphics, flat screen game, not developed for VR, that is now being brought into VR and made to feel as if it was, originally built from the ground up for virtual reality. So it's exciting times, man.
Talk about genre diversity too. Go from a rhythm game to an atmospheric second person horror game. Like, that's awesome.
For sure, dude. For sure. So that's it. That's Out of Sight VR. Early access on Steam on Thursday. Go wish list it. Support Flat2VR Studios. Support the gang. Pick up the flat version too. Who cares? Play both. Like, pick up the flat version for your friend. Get the VR version for yourself. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. We're going to be doing XR Update a little bit more regularly now. We took a little time off there to do a bunch of work, and now we're getting to the point where we're ready to talk about some of this stuff. So we're going to do some more episodes of XR Update in the near future. I think we're going to do another one next week. So like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more content from the podcast and xrupdate.com, Impact Reality, and Flat2VR Studios. Anything else, Damien, before we wrap this?
No, I think that was good. That was a good cherry on top, and just excited for Thursday. See this thing out in the wild.
Well, me too. Thanks for joining me today, brother. Again, my name's Alex. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe. Join our Discord. All that stuff. We'll see you next week for another episode of XR Update. Have a good week and weekend, everybody. Take care.
Ciao, ciao.